everyone. It's 11 a.m. your time, 10 a.m. my time, so we're still on morning. Good morning. Happy to have everyone here and everyone joining us. It is 11:01 now, so we'll go ahead and slowly get started. But as people trickle in, um, we just welcome you. This is the first segment of our 2025 Center for Native American Cancer Health Equity webinar series. It is a quarterly series, so this is the first of the four. And we're so excited to have you today for our featured presentation by Dr. Tommy Rock. And the topic of the presentation is From Research to Action, Air Quality Insights on Navajo Nation. We will have time for Tommy to provide a further introduction of himself, but just as you all know, he is an assistant professor here at Northern Arizona University in the Geography, Planning, and Recreation Department, and he is also affiliated with the Center for Ecosystem Science and Society, or ECOS. And as part of our webinar series, the intention behind it is for Native students to learn more about cancer health equity education in the Four Corners region. We will be providing a recording of today's webinar, and that will be available on the NAU Share YouTube channel. And this webinar series is supported with grant funding from the American Cancer Society. And as your moderator today, I want to provide a brief introduction of myself. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Yat'e. As I said, my name is Jennifer Hudson. I am a citizen of the Navajo Nation. My clans are Mountain Cove Clan, born for the Blackstreet Wooded people. My maternal grandfathers are of the Towering House Clan, and my paternal grandfathers of the Water's Edge Clan. And within C-NACHE, I am the Senior Community Program Coordinator Senior, and I'm just really excited to be sharing this space with you all. And I am accompanied today by my co-presenter, Chastity Begay, and I'll provide some time for her now to introduce herself.
Hi, good morning. Yate Bene. My name is Chastity Begay. I'm an enrolled member of Navajo Nation and for kinship. I am of Coyote Pass, born for the Big Water Clan. My maternal grandfather is of the Towering House Clan, and my paternal grandfather is of the Bitterwater Clan. So hello to any relatives I have out there. I'm a research coordinator for the Center for Native American Cancer Health Equity, and I'm working alongside Jennifer with these webinar series. So it's really great to see this many people in this webinar, and I'm excited for you all to learn about our featured speaker. Oh, and I'll be helping with the chat, so if you have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat or message me.
Thank you so much, Chastity. So with that, those are our introductions. As I said, we'll provide time for Tommy to provide his, but I did see that Chastity put in the chat a prompt for everyone to introduce themselves. We'd love to know who's in the room with us today, so please provide that in the chat when you get the chance. So for now, we'll go ahead and move on. Before we turn it over to Tommy, we just wanted to talk a little bit about our webinar series. As I said, this is the first of the 2025 series. So if you joined us last year, this slide may look familiar, but what we want to do with this slide is really set our intentions for our webinar topic and our speaker today. And mainly a lot of this is rooted in Indigenous thinking and mindset and the intent that we put into our actions and why we perform them. And with the webinar series, we understand that we are sharing topics that are usually sensitive to some communities regarding cancer. And those health ailments. So we do want to be intentional about how we handle those conversations, those discussions. We do want to ensure that we are handling those topics with the utmost respect and care. So what this slide provides for us is just a quick moment for us to set those intentions for ourselves, whichever way we choose to do that, whether that's through prayer or asking for protection from any potential harms that may come from these discussions and what's presented. So what I'll do with that is just, as everyone does it in their own way, I'll just provide about 45 seconds here for everyone to, perform that in their own way and, yeah, just speak to what they want to get out of this webinar. And as I said, ask for any protection as we uh, take in this information and learn more about it. So I will just be quiet for now and give us some time to do that. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone, for that and for participating in that action with all of us. With that, we're going to go ahead and move forward then. So what we have here is just a slide of what may everyone on the call may recognize, but this is the Northern Arizona University campus in Flagstaff. Um, and at the base of it, as you can see in the back there, known by its colonial name of the San Francisco Peaks, but a mountain that is sacred to tribes throughout the region. So really quickly, I just want to provide NAU's land acknowledgement during this time. Northern Arizona University sits at the base of the San Francisco Peaks on homeland sacred to Native Americans throughout the region. We honor their past, present, and future generations who have lived here for millennia and will forever call this place home. So we, again, just want to start with that intentionality of the land that we're on. And right now, I am based actually in the Pacific Northwest. So I just want to acknowledge the tribal lands that I am occupying while also partaking in this webinar series. So that is a little bit about where C-NACHE is rooted and where we're based, but more about C-NACHE itself. Our center was established in December of 2022 from funding that was awarded from the American Cancer Society to NAU. And the overall goal of our center is to reduce the unequal burden of cancer and advance cancer health equity for Native Americans, and particularly with a focus on cancer screening rates, access to cancer care services, and exposure to cancer-causing environmental contaminants in Native American communities. We have a lot of initiatives focused on these areas. I would encourage you to view our website to learn more about each of those. But we're excited to learn more about the environmental portion of that from Tommy's presentation today. And then moving on further and just a little bit more about our webinar series itself. The series is committed to spotlighting different types and aspects of cancer research occurring throughout Turtle Island, and with a specific focus in the Four Corners region, so Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, and Colorado. And really trying to understand their impact and prevalence on cancer within Native communities. And really what the root of that is getting to is trying to demonstrate that cancer health equity research can span from diverse fields of knowledge, and we want emerging scholars and the next multidisciplinary generation of cancer researchers and advocates to know that there are many fields to pursue and many fields to advance cancer health equity. So we're really excited about this webinar series and what the next year of this would look like and going forward. So again, we just thank you all for joining us today. With that said, I will go ahead and turn it over now to Dr. Tommy Rock to provide his featured presentation again on From Research to Action, Air Quality Insights on Navajo Nation.
Ja, det har jag Tommy Rockon, Shadon, no dashing, slantless, some of the chain, 20, that's a shadow look at the national today. I didn't slid only all jet 20, Lina on it, Nasha, the Besha get that on it, a teen. I didn't slid all dog with the Kinslandi Adi Shaltra. Hataya didn't slide. Hi, my name is Dr. Tommy Rock. I am originally from Oljetu chapter in beautiful Monument Valley. And I grew up in Copper Canyon with my grandparents. And now I'm here. And I got my bachelor degree from Arizona State, my master's and PhD from NAU, and I did 2 postdocs, one at the University of Utah, and then the other one at Princeton University. And I shall start my presentation. Okay, well, am I sharing it?
Yeah,
Is it,
Tommy, I
okay,
see it starting to share, but I don't see it on the screen just yet. Can you maybe exit out? Yeah, exit out and go ahead and try again.
what happened here? It's like,
I know it was just working for you.
yeah, it's technology. Technology is not my friend today. There you go.
There we go. Yeah, we can see the PowerPoint.
There you go, finally.
Okay, yeah.
Some technical difficulties. Anyway, this is Monument Valley. And again, I'm in Ecos, that's where my office is, on the North Campus. And okay. There you go. My computer froze up somehow. Well, my background, the reason why I'm here and do what I do has to do with my grandfather. His name was Shawnee Holiday, and my grandmother. My grandfather was a former uranium mine worker. He's also a World War II vet in the Army, and he blew stuff up in the Army. And with his skill, he came back, and he was working as a uranium mine. Excuse me. And this middle picture is called Moonlight Mine in Monument Valley. This is the last place that he worked. And when he was working there, there were 3 of them walking out of there, and he was walking in the middle. There's a guy in front of him, there's another guy in the back, and there's a big old entrance on the west side of the wall on that side, and the road goes all the way down, come out on the bottom on the south side of the pit. anyways, big old entrance, and blocking the entrance was a big old rock. And him, my grandfather, and the guy that was walking in front of him, they made it out, but the guy in the back of him didn't. So that big bowl that's blocking the entrance killed him. So he's buried underneath that rock. And that's the story behind that moonlight mine. I've been to that mine numerous times, just exploring, checking out with my cousin. And this is Holiday Mesa, and all the gray area that you see there, those are mines, uranium mines. There's a lot of them on Holiday Mesa. And that cabin down below in the right-hand corner is where I grew up with my grandparents. And that wall right behind me, on the inside, my grandmother was making, she used to make these big rugs. And the traces of that rug is still there, like the structure or the frame. Anyway, that's how I grew up. No electricity, no running water. This is in Copper Canyon. So since my grandfather passed away when I was here doing my master's, and he passed away of bone cancer. And I didn't know at the time that he had cancer. He was old, so he was in a nursing home. And because of the duration of his time working as a uranium miner, he got bad asthma. And he used to have like an inhaler towards the end of his life. He started dragging around a tank around him so I could breathe. But I remember in like around 5 o'clock in the morning, it's like I went out to a conference in Gallup with Manly Begay from ITEP, and went up there and came back, and my sister was calling me at 5 o'clock in the morning, telling me he's like trying to wake me up. And I saw it with my sister. Is like, I was like, why is my sister calling? So it's early. So anyway, I ignored it a couple of times. She was persistent and found out that my grandfather or our grandfather was about to pass away. He had a couple of hours to live. So told me about that and rushed back home. And on my way home, halfway home, he passed away from cancer. And my grandmother, she went up to like 106, and she passed away from old age. But, so these two have a huge impact on me growing up. So because of what my grandfather been through about uranium exposure, I figured I chip in and try and help my community, my tribe, and other tribe as well with environmental exposure. So my presentation is like a little bit about my background, my postdoctoral fellowships, historical policies related to Native American, the geological formation of uranium ore on Navajo Nation, adverse health in Indigenous population, environmental justice grants, skyline, one of the studies that I did, and some oil and gas, a pilot study that I did at my time at Princeton. For some reason, my slide is really slow. Changing the slide is really slow. Anyway, these are some of the bad policies that the Indigenous populations endured from the US federal government. And even though Indian Religious Freedom Act, there's the Religious Freedom Act, and it has that Religious Freedom Act that everybody enjoys, has more teeth than what we have, the Indigenous American Indian Religious Freedom Act. And it has some protection to us, tribe, but in terms of us practicing what we do, religious-wise, culture-wise, ceremony-wise, like we tend to still have issues with non-natives and other folks. And when we do practice our religions, our culture, or ceremonies, like off the reservation or near the reservation, people tend to still call cops on us and interfere with our way of life or practice. And we have to be very careful of what we do, because the issue of someone profiting off of what we do is still there. You can see a lot of that, such as like the Kokopelli. You can see that in the dream catchers and so on and so forth. There's many examples of how they're using our stuff, and even in ceremonies or sweat lodge, people use that to make profit off of it. So in terms of strength, is like it doesn't really have that strength. And another example is here in Flagstaff, we have the San Francisco Peak, and that's sacred to many tribes in the region. And with the Indian Religious Freedom Act, it's like people or the Forest Service doesn't tend to respect our cultural belief or sacred sites. And the same things happen with other tribes as well. It's like the one is the Havasu tribe with the Red Butte, that's like their sacred site, and the issue of uranium mining there. And then the issue of Indian land for sale. And the other one is from the 1950 is the sterilization of Native women and babies being taken away from Native women in the 1950s as well as like and being raised by non-natives and being uprooted in the 1950s as well as like when the tribe tried to erase us, and it seems like we're in the same scenario nowadays. So for the Rocky Mountain Center for Occupational Environment, this is like the first postdoc I did at the University of Utah. And I was fortunate enough to work with some other tribes like Northern Navajo. This is their tribal flag. And this is on the Wooden River Reservation. On the right-hand corner is the study that I did over in Standing Rock. This is the Missouri River. And for the Missouri River, that study there, I did a study on total petroleum hydrocarbon, looking at the oil in the Missouri River. So I worked with the Sioux tribe out there and gave them the data. For the Wind River for Northern Arapaho was the air quality study. So that was fun, working with them tribes and getting to know the tribe as well. And at Princeton, I was recruited by a professor that was working over there. He wanted to work with a community members that had knowledge of environmental issue. His name is Fadl Sheikh, and it's supposed to be like a 11-12 week job. And there's this prestigious Princeton University Presidential Postdoctoral Research Fellow that was open. So I was encouraged to apply, and I did. And next thing you know, I got accepted. And I spent 2 years at Princeton, and I got funding from High Meadows Environmental Institute. And that's one of the gear that I used to carry around. So air collector for the pilot study that you're gonna hear about in a bit. And that's me in the geoscience lab, John Higgins' lab, Dr. John Higgins. And one of the projects I work on was also looking at improving or renovation of springs. And this particular spring is in Douglas Mesa. And it's working. This water is full. I put like a little hole on top of this tank. It's a 2,500-gallon tank. Water is coming down. And I checked the water quality, got the water sample, and took that back to Princeton's and checked the water quality in John Higgins' lab. And I worked with one of the lab managers there. And that was a lot of fun doing that. And with some of the health disparities, a lot of these coming from University of New Mexico, Dr. Jenny Lewis and her work, Deborah McKenzie, Dr. Joe Hoover. He is in University of Arizona now and still collaborate with Joe Hoover on some of the water quality stuff. But in terms of what they've done and what's been happening is looking at the disparities in tribal nations about exposure, environmental exposure. And yeah, these are some of the stuff that they worked on. And the prenatal metal exposure is still ongoing to my knowledge. And I'll speed it up real quick. So, in terms of minerals, from Monument Valley areas, this is skyline, this is what uranium ore looks like. And when you look at this ore, it's not only uranium, there's like uranium, there's thorium, there's radiums that come from uranium all the way down to lead. And it's all in that, the heavy metal, and also the radiation as well. And where they're found, it's like late Jurassic fluvial sediments. It's been found between the Chinook and the Montgomery Formation. And in the Grants Mineral Belt, the ore is in the Morrison Formation in the Westwater Canyon. And in Cameron area, it's in the Chinley Formation, the Shona Petrified Forest and Owl Rock sandstone. And just a overall view of where's the ore are located, like in the Four Corners, Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, and Arizona. It's like they all are found in different sandstones. Like that's the main takeaway from this slide. So this is not only in the Morrison Formation, but other sandstone. And this is the Grants Mineral Belt and the project I worked on with Tulane Lake Enterprise. There's Sanders, all the uranium mines up in New Mexico area. And the spill that happened in 1979, Church Rock and Sanders down below. It's like the water flow through the Perkle River, past Sanders. And in comparison with some of the nuclear exit, the Chernobyl, all the way down to Church Rock, you can see how much radiation that were released. Here in the US, the most that was released was the Church Rock spill. I'm going a little fast because of time, so and for the environmental justice project, this is back in 2015. It's like with Tulane Lake Enterprise. I still work with Jock Cerrone, Chris Shuey, and collaborate on some project with Janine Yazzie as well. And for Sanders, there it is. There's no mining or milling in the Sanders area or Newlands area, all of it coming from the Church Rock area. And this is Skyline. And I did this project because the folks that live in this area, they were concerned about the uranium dust on the edge of this mesa. This is Holiday Mesa. And this is one of the first uranium mine that had like a temporary cleanup. And the majority of the mine waste is still on the slope. It's like a 75-degree slope, very steep, very slippery. And that's the reason why it's like the remediation workers at the times like this cleanup happened back in 2011, 2012. They were told not to get near the edge because of how slippery it was. Like the drop is like 800 feet from the top to the bottom. So for worker safety, they were unable to do the cleanup at the edge of the mesa. So some of that is coming down, and with this is like put like a passive dust collector on the bottom near the mesa, a little away from the mesa, and where the folks live. So as you can see, it's like there are uranium dust coming down, and then which goes into the Clean Air Act. And in terms of policy, It goes from PM10 to PM2.5, and anything below 2.5 is not regulated. So there are particulates that are finer than PM2.5. There's some research that was done by University of New Mexico and the college in Crown Point, and they've shown that there are small particulates smaller than PM2.5 that can go deeper into the lungs. And this just shows like how small the particulates are regulated, like PM2.5. And with the oil and gas, this isn't and both of these creatures, they're both in nth chapter, the paradox basin. And the picture on the right is one of the test drills that was done. And this well is still being utilized, and I've seen like a layer of oil on top, and it's being used by the community members. There's like 3 or 4 of these out in nth chapter, and it's producing water as well. And to give you an idea of what interests me was the oil and gas is because of this. You can see the one in Utah, the amount of oil and gas in that area on the Paradox Basin, and the one in New Mexico, the San Juan Basin, and you can see a lot of oil and gas fields and test wells out in New Mexico. And during the winter season, it's like you see inversion, and I was driving up to Windy Rock when I saw this inversion happening. This is from people burning woods during the winter. You can see that inversion happening. It's like when it's really cold, the layer will drop down near the surface. But if it's oil and gas fields, like all that stuff will drop down as well because it's heavy. So people get more exposed. And this is a pilot study that I did with Princeton University with Mark Zandalo, Dr. Mark Zandalo from Princeton University, and Fazil Sheikh, and Mark Zandalo's PhD student Nathan Lee, and Yun Chow. And as you can see, it's like 100,000 cancer risks from 2022, and on the right is January 2023. And I put these reference, OSHA reference of exposure. So the right-hand corner, one part of benzene vapor per millions, or 1 ppm for an 8-hour workday. That's a OSHA. And for the community members that live in these areas, they'll be classified as chronic exposure, constantly breathing that in and being exposed to that. And to give a reference of what a natural methane level is in that green box, that's the natural methane level. And this study shows that there are elevated in spikes and release of these methane and benzene gases. For benzenes, going to these communities, NF and council chapter, I do hear a lot about respiratory issues. And in NF area, I hear a lot about headaches, migraine headaches. If people are exposed to benzenes, they get migraine headache. And the community members will talk about kids having respiratory issues. So there's a lot more of that in NF and council chapters. So people are concerned about the public health, especially when it comes to kids. And with chronic exposure, there's the issue of cancers like leukemia and so on and so forth. And methane levels, again, breathing, fatigue, it's like if it's too high, it's coma and death. And we use a electric car to get samples, driving on driving on the highways, getting some of these levels of methane levels. In some cases, this is on the south side of Montezuma Creek, and you can see some of the gases leaking. That where the stars at. That's where the facility is at. And when it's windy, it's like a blowing northwest. And if it's blowing from east to west, that these communities will be exposed as well. And there are other sites where they'll blow right into the community, such as this. This is Montezuma Creek on the left-hand corner. There's a elementary school and a hospital there, and there's a high school in that area as well. So how do we do admissions? Is like getting the people educated and working with Navajo air quality to enforce the Clean Air Act and having better air collector and enforcers as well. It's like we did present to, we meaning Dr. Jonathan Credo and we present to Navajo EPA when we also talked to Utah Environmental Quality and TEKs, like how folks are being impacted or affected. And that's the electric car and all the gadgets on there is what we use to collect air samples. And this is what I'm interested in terms of doing research here at NAU. I'm interested in doing phytoremediation, looking at water, plants, animals, oil and gas as well, and water filtrations. Acknowledgement to Line Lake Enterprise, Trick, yeah. And Mark Zunglu lab, John Higgins lab, and Fazal Sheikh. Fazal Sheikh is the one in Princeton. Yeah, sorry, it's like I went as quickly as possible. So
No,
if you have
you're
any questions,
yeah, you're fine, Tommy. I can take screen sharing back and we'll go ahead and move into the Q&A portion.
oh,
Let me see. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for that presentation, Tommy. It was just so interesting to hear about all the work you've done and in all the different communities you've been able to do that in. Um, the differences that they're seeing, but also the kind of common denominator of the health effects that they have and all the impacts that they have on a person's well-being. I especially found it interesting the study you did where you were seeing the dust particles as it fell off from different levels from that. Um, so I thought that was really interesting. I do have a question on, um, but I'll hold it in case there's no other questions that come up. But yes, thank you again for sharing all of that with us. We will have a Q&A portion for about 15 minutes here. So we do, as our intention is to reach more students with this information and learning about cancer careers, we do encourage questions from our student audience first. And then we'll open it up to the broader audience. But yeah, I'll just open it up now if anyone wants to either come off mute or if you'd like to drop your question in the chat for Dr. Rock. Okay, it looks like we do have one. Oh, we have two. So first, from Franklin Tellis, they thank you for the wonderful presentation, and they ask, are you currently engaging in passive, example, dust collectors, or active, for example, Kitsanides? I think you would know that better. Balloons or drones, for field air quality campaigns in your research.
Yes, I am very interested in getting drones and getting some air collector put on the drone so it can get not only the width of the plume, but also the height of the plume as well. Not only for air quality study, like oil and gas, but also using that to look at some of the mine waste as well. So the idea is to keep people safe and reduce the amount of exposure, especially when it comes to uranium and the radiation.
All right, thank you for that response. We do have a second question from Brianna Black, who asks, as far as you know, what has been done to remediate or reduce airborne uranium contamination in affected communities?
From what I've seen, especially with the skyline, they put Gorilla Glue on the soil to prevent any erosion, like from wind or when it rains. So to keep everything in one location. I've seen that happen. Um, but nowadays, with things going on, I the other thing that I've seen is using water to control dust. And that's one of the things that happened over in Skyline as well. It's like they had these big water trucks that will take water up to Skyline and to keep the dust down as well. And I've seen that happen as well.
Yeah, that was going to be my question was, since, it was too dangerous for the workers to clean up that area, I was wondering what their solutions were then to still clean it up, to to get rid of any exposure. Wouldn't have considered Gorilla Glue. That's interesting. I get the water, to dampen it so there's not so much dust. That's what we do in the hogans when we're we're sweeping them out, so that way it's not all dusty there. But I wouldn't have considered Gorilla Glue. That is really interesting. Oh, we do have another question, two more questions that popped up. The first from Joyce Tovar. They say, thank you, Dr. Rock. Will PP be shared? Oh, probably the presentation. Yes, Joyce, we can definitely share that if Dr. Rock is comfortable with that. We know
Yeah.
there's some personal items in there, but you can send me an adapted version if need be. And then they ask, where can I access the policy you talked about? You mentioned it's to protect communities in exposed areas.
Which one? Which
Mm,
the air quality, like oil and gas, or from uranium?
Joyce, are you able to come off mute or drop it in the chat?
If we're talking about the air, then that's the Clean Air Act. But for the counselor chapter, though, they're working with, or actually, they did some of the grassroots organizations that are doing some work in counselor chapter near the Chaco Canyon area. They did sue the state of New Mexico, and they want to go and have these oil and gases be a mile away from schools, because some of these oil and gas fields are close to schools. And over in Utah, over in Montezuma Creek, they're literally just next door to the school as well. So the high schools, not only the high school student, but the elementary students are being exposed. I know some people that work at the Utah Navajo Health System, and they will talk about the plume is so bad, it smells so bad, and they would talk about closing the clinic down just so they can get out of that plume. So it's a huge issue in both communities in terms of breathing in some of these plumes from the gases.
Wow. All right, I have a couple more questions come in. And Joyce did clarify any policies will do, so they thank you. Um, Next question from Rachel James asks, do you know of any air, soil, and water remediation efforts being done using hemp on the res?
That's a good question. I haven't heard anything, but that is something that I'm interested. I know that University of New Mexico, they're talking about doing some fighting remediation, but that was over in Acoma. I think it was one of the big open pit mine that's off of I-40. I didn't know what type of plant they're using, but that's something that they're doing over there. And I did work with a undergraduate when I was at University of Utah, worked with a BYU undergraduate student, and he was using sunflower plant to address fighting remediation. And that didn't work out because of the pH level, I think, from the soil. So it's like but in terms of using hemp, I haven't seen it yet. I haven't heard about that yet, but that is something that I'm interested in.
Yeah, for sure. I haven't heard about that too. It's exciting to see where we can go with that.
And I did apply to this EPA grant community chain. That's something that I wrote in the proposal about addressing fighting remediation. The other one is BioCrust, cryptobiotic soil. There's researchers here at NAU that are using BioCrust. And BioCrust can be used to address remediation as well. So I'm really curious about that. It's like I never heard of that, but that is very interesting.
Yeah, Rachel followed up with they use hemp a lot in Europe. So something to look into maybe. Look at some European studies. All right. Next question here from Brianna Black asks, in your experience from visiting the different sites on the reservation, how informed are community members about air quality risks related to uranium mining?
That's a huge issue because like some community members they go to some of the meetings, but people are working, so they can't make a lot of these meetings. And not only issues related to uranium coming from the tribal or federal regulatories folks, but as researchers as well as like we did talk like among us researchers from here in NAU, UNM, and U of A about centralizing one area to or one location where all this information can be stored so the community members can have access to it. And that's like an ongoing discussion that I keep hearing about as well. But in terms of some of the air quality stuff, there are some documents that on the website. If you go to US EPA Region 9 and type in abandoned uranium mines, they do have some of those documents up, but with the recent administration change, I don't know if it's still up, so that's a huge issue. So, but I think um, maybe Nova EPA will have something up on their website, or maybe have something accessible for the community members so they can have a documentation of stuff like that, like air quality stuff.
Uh, and then the next question is posed by Michael King, and they ask, are you aware of any recent efforts by Navajo EPA to develop a minor source air permits program to adequately quantify emissions from oil and gas sources?
I haven't seen anything on that. And talking with Navajo EPA, it's like there's only like maybe 3 or 4 staff on the air quality program, and they don't have the equipment. So it'll be something that be it'll be good to do a study. And right now is like my friend and colleague Dr. Jonathan Credo and I were putting a pilot study to look together. And we are going to collaborate and bring in Navajo EPA, the air quality program, into that study as well. And they were talking about Navajo EPA, they were talking about a study in Eastern Agency, but I don't know with who, but we are talking about giving some of that information or data and some of the stuff that we know. So it's like there definitely be collaboration, and then there's definitely going to be ways to help get some of these equipment that is needed to help enforce some of these air quality issue on our nation, especially when it comes to oil and gas field.
All right. Well, thank you for those responses, Dr. Rock. We did get a comment from Renee Nelson, I think on the hemp conversation about palonina trees and their large levees because they're able to remediate both airborne and soil population or pollution, sorry. And they come from China. So those studies are available as well. A lot of alternatives, it looks like that could be looked into. All right, Chris Lee, I see that you raised your hand. You can come off mute.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, hear you fine.
Okay. Dr. Rock, she Christopher Lee and she Kian and Shne Kachini Bashichin the Bethlejin Dashiche Torchini Dashinala. I just want to say thank you for the information that you shared, and I really appreciate the good work that you're doing. It really makes me feel good to see our tribal people doing this kind of work, especially for the communities on Navajo. All of those items that you shared, the projects that you worked on at one time or another, through the work that I've done with Navajo EPA, touched in those areas. And just to give you a awareness of my background, from 2000 to 2005, I worked with Navajo EPA in the air quality program, and I was part of the team that helped develop the permitting program for Navajo, the major source permitting program. And that's why I wanted to share some information, and that these projects that you're talking about, and the mention of Navajo EPA not really having a lot of staff, that is very true. And the permitting program that the Navajo Nation developed has been able to bring in funding that may be able to help with a lot of these studies that you're talking about. And perhaps that might be a way to approach Navajo EPA in identifying maybe more resources to focus into these areas. The oil and gas in the Utah portion is really significant, and that really needs some more further study, as do the uranium issues on Church Rock, as well as throughout the whole Navajo Nation. So again, I really want to say thank you for that detailed work that you're providing. Thank you.
Thank you for that information, Chris.
Yeah, thank you, Chris, for that comment and for those kind words for Dr. Rock. Definitely a light in all that is going on right now. So we appreciate you sharing all of that with us, Dr. Rock. I do see another question here in the chat. Probably the last question for right now, and then we'll move into some closing announcements. But Dr. Rock has graciously agreed to stay on for about 10 minutes after the hour for any other follow-up questions or one-on-one engagements anyone would like to have. But to close us off, from Franklin Tellis, we do have a comment here and question. I see that there is some advocacy for plants as remediation. Can we focus on how native vegetation and local biocrusts can remediate dust? I think there are a few plant dust studies with the USGS and Paiute Nation in the Owens Valley.
Oh, definitely. And I know with that proposal that I submitted with my team on the EPA grant, that's in there, looking at phytoremediation and using biocrust. So I hope we get the grant, because that'll be great, because and that grant is also going to be talking or addressing improving water quality through water filtration system. And that's UNM and NAU. So of course, I'll be on that and doing some research related to that. So using different methods. So I'm pretty stoked about that as well. And I am collaborating with University of Arizona on stuff related to nano water filtration system, like with Dr. Coletta Chief and Vicky from U of A as well. And doing some work out in Aljeto chapter from my chapter as well. And trying to plant some of these traditional crops back inside Minot Valley Tribal Park as well. So it was like we're supposed to be having some meeting in February and start strategizing on planting these crops, like corn and stuff. And I know for U of A, they do have some of these traditional corn seeds that was used a long time ago. So bring some of that back to Navajo Nation, back into the community. And so it's like I'm really excited about that.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Dr. Rock, and thank you to our audience for all those engaging questions and yeah, for sparking the conversation that we had today. We do have up here on the slide now an evaluation link. I believe Chastity is also sharing that in the chat, or you can scan that with your phone, the QR code to access the survey. All of your feedback is greatly appreciated and really helps improve our webinar series. Like I said, this is the first one of the year, so we can only get better throughout the year. So we appreciate the time that you take to complete that. But again, Dr. Rock will be able to stay on for about 10 minutes after if anyone has any other additional questions or comments. But just really appreciate all of you joining us today, and we hope you have a good rest of the day. Thank you and goodbye.